Yes, indeed. So here we are. And today is significant from the point of view that today we're starting a new project. The last project we worked on was space. And in our last session last month, we closed that off by laying out what that framework was for. And yeah, now we're moving into lead, which is, and that's intentional because the framework and the support for every other project that we do is this idea that we need to first create the space. We need to first have the right sense of identity. Who are we? We need to be able to connect to our present moment. We need to be able to connect to who we are. And then from then, that is the place of optimal performance. Everything that we have, everything we own, everything we're about, all our gifts, all our resources are best utilized when we're fully present, fully aware of who we are, and fully able to know that whatever we need in that moment will come. So why lead? Well, as we're going to find out, there is certain belief about leadership that I'm looking and hoping to confront. One of those is that there's some special people who are leaders. And again, we'll show that, is that really true? The second one is, in order to become a good leader, you need to go and get all these tools and you need to go and add so much to yourself to become a great leader. And I'm going to, again, kind of question, is that really how it works? And that's going to cause us to look at this idea of whether a leader is manifested from inside out or outside in. And as behind me, you'll see that it says transfloation. The idea behind that really is all my work is based on the premise that everything we need to be, what we're called to be, and what we're here to do exists within us. And it's our job to find out what's stopping it from coming out. And that's why we use poetry to generate and to ignite insight. And once we have that insight helps us remove the filter that stops that part of us from showing up. So enough of the kind of introduction. There's no better way to start than putting a piece in there and then jumping off from there. So here we are. I'm going to put that in there and then I will read it. So this one is called That Leader, subtitle Leadership Manifesto. And really the reason I put this on there is this is really to do with what kind of leadership will serve us in the kind of times that we have now. So I'll read. Leading from the front with heart and head engaged, leading a mission bigger than anyone's ego, caring enough not to leave the team behind, where everyone feels a part of the us, not intimidated by the many gifts they bring, seeking out every chance to let them shine, knowing that others can lead in what they are best at, cheerleading from the front of the room, celebrating the whole person, showing up at home and at work, not afraid to let them see. Leaders are human too, catching them doing what is right, leaving a legacy that outlasts your tenure, creating the next pair of safe hands, not forgetting to enjoy the journey. That leader is you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read that again. That leader, Leadership Manifesto. Leading from the front with heart and head engaged, leading a mission bigger than anyone's ego, caring enough not to leave the team behind, where everyone feels a part of the us, not intimidated by the many gifts they bring, seeking out every chance to let them shine, knowing that others can lead in what they are best at. Share leading from the front of the room, celebrating the whole person showing up at home and at work. Not afraid to let them see leaders are human too. Catching them doing what is right, leaving a legacy that outlasts your tenure, creating the next pair of safe hands, not forgetting to enjoy the journey. That leader is you.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed you chuckled every time I said that leader is you.
Because this reminds me of when I was working in a school,
Right.
and I had to I was working as a primary school mentor,
Mm.
but I then moved into the school had such difficulties with working with parents,
Mm-hmm.
and I had good skills with working with people.
Right.
So I started to put to build that relationship with the parents. Then the parents was coming back to me and telling me what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then that put me in a position where I had to lead on setting up initiatives to support their needs in order to get them to work in partnership with the school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just laughing because some of the things that I had to do,
Mm.
and it triggered, and I was new on the block as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it triggered, and some of the people in the school, they were older, they've been in the school for a long time, and they've been trying to work with parents and they had a poor relationship with them. So they were trying to warn me, these parents are just, don't invest your time, or don't invest your time with them. They're ungrateful lot. They, and they were like almost trying to cloud my eyes so that I wouldn't do anything to support them. So when I came forth with proposals, or perhaps the school could do this, I had whereas I had some people who was going, yeah, that sounds good. I wouldn't don't mind coming on board for that. I had obstacles from some of the senior leaders about them coming on board. But so it was like sometimes it was like breaking down the barriers with them, helping them to break down their own personal barriers in order for them to come on. Once they came on board, they didn't mind me leading. It's just
Mm.
that they were fearful.
Mm.
And I think, sometimes if they've been in a place and change needs to be made, and they haven't made it, or what they've tried to do has been unsuccessful, to watch somebody else come in who they rank as not one of them, you know, come in and make headway, it's very hard for them to then come on board and with you and accepting you as a leader. And I
Mm.
had those difficulties.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a beautiful reflection, actually. Just give me a second. Let me find. So here we go. Right. So you were saying, and it was quite interesting what you were saying about the experience
Yes,
you had.
yeah. So that when you said leading a mission bigger than anyone's ego,
Yeah.
caring enough not to leave the team behind,
Yeah.
um, where everyone feels a part of the us. That
Mm.
was that was that was how I envisaged what I wanted, what needed to be done.
Right.
That was the way it was to be done, with
Yeah.
not by me. I might have been defaced for certain things, but it, it was bigger than me. And it
Yeah.
wasn't about me saying coming in with wanting a feather in the cap or something like that.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time trying to understand why there was such obstacle about engaging with the parents. What was their experience?
Mm.
I spent time trying to understand, by the time I was trying to understand their experiences
Mm.
and their frustrations and so forth, I then understood, I learned a lot about them, each and every one of those people. I learned a
Mm.
lot about them. I learned a lot about where their skill sets were. I learned about the bruising that they had
Mm.
and what turned them off
Mm-hmm.
wanting to engage
Wow.
was something that was so critical to the well-being of the children.
Right.
That the center of it is the kids.
Wow.
Because
Yeah.
if you support the parents,
Mm.
it's going to have a knock-on effect on the children, and it's the children you want to get to.
Right.
You know, but they were just so grind down.
Yeah. There's so much beauty in what you've shared. I mean, we could go on quite a while just unpacking that. So here's what's interesting from what I heard you say. These so so the issue with ego, and ego really is the perception of who you think you are. That's really what ego is about. And one of the words you used there, which is very interesting, is that people were scared, right? So the space framework that we've just gone through, the reason why that's the right foundation before we can start talking about things like this is that if you go back to that framework, you will remember that we talked about that when you recognize that you're not your mind and you're the one who's aware of what's happening in your mind, one of the main maladaptive features of the mind is that when the mind perceives danger, even if it's not existential danger, it begins to come up with all these mechanisms to protect, right? And if you're not aware that that's what the mind is doing, and if you're not the one who's aware that, okay, well, it's trying to protect me from danger, but actually the danger is not really what it thinks it is, then you're able to step back and not be carried along with it. Because here's what you could have done in that scenario. You could have taken on the fear of other people. You could have believed what they said about the parents, and therefore it could have colored your own approach and your own effectiveness in dealing with those parents, right? So it's the idea that then because people are trying to protect and they're not aware that that's what their mind is doing, they get carried away with that and they just feel reticent to get involved. Some don't even understand why they don't want to get involved, or some will be able to articulate like they did to you that, oh, when this happened, this happened. And when that happened, yeah, I thought that was that. And that's one of the things about that really is that you find that people, the mind cannot predict the future. So its best chance is to use the past as data in order to try and predict the future. So because they had problems in the past, the mind will extrapolate that, well, don't forget the problem we had in the past, so don't bother trying to do it again because there's a good chance the same thing will happen again. But actually, if you learn from what happened in the past, like you did, where you went back and said, okay, what did you do in the past that didn't work? What blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, if we do this and this and this, based on what I've heard from these people, this could work. Let's try it. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, yeah. Because that's exactly in the end what ended up happening. And in the end, I put in place an initiative, and
Mm.
I said to them, "We're going to try. Let's try this initiative. We're going to try this with the parents."
Mm.
And it was to set up a space for
Mm.
them to meet once a
Mm.
week for a couple of hours, and the teams, the first response was, "Oh, they're just going to be there bad mouthing us. They're just going to be bad mouthing us."
Yeah, yeah,
So I said, well, within that space, we're going to have some boundaries.
right.
And don't forget, I'm here representing the school as well. So I'm not going to be in a situation where I'm running a group
Mm.
and parents are allowed to be bad mouthing
Mm.
teachers because of past incidents and so forth and so forth.
Mm.
So, those would be ground rules. We would have ground rules, and
Mm.
parents would have ground rules
Mm.
for them to be attending the group.
Yeah,
But they were so skeptical. They were so, I thought, boy, they must have got some serious burnings, you
yeah,
know. Yeah. So
yeah. It's
and it did. But in the end, we went ahead and I spoke to the parent. We launched a coffee morning that went on for over 10 years.
wow.
It 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 got the notice of every school in the whole of Barnet.
Mm.
It got the attention of so many different um in the end, for me, that is what led me into training,
Okay.
because schools were trying to set up the same kind of thing and it couldn't never work. Parents were not interested. Nobody would turn up. Nobody would this, that, the other. And they couldn't understand what it was that I was doing. They all wanted to know what it was that I was doing that allowed me to have 20, 30, 40 parents every Wednesday packing out the school hall, you know, doing different activities, sharing their views, working in better partnership. They couldn't understand what I was doing. So lots of schools wanted to come to my school to learn from me, to come and see what was going on. So it led to something that was much outside of the school.
Yeah, I guess.
I ended up writing, I had the race equality journal. They approached me and asked me to write a piece about why the coffee morning at the school is so successful. And I wrote it from a culture, why it was so successful. It led to so many things. It broke down so much barriers. And then the same people who were so skeptical, they would come each week, they would come along and they would meet the parents and have tea and coffee, sit and have tea and coffee with them. And you know, their perception just changed.
Yeah.
You know, because I started to see these parents, they started to see them as individuals.
Yeah.
And individuals with their own lives and having to balance their life and their children and their this and that. And that these parents were no different to them. It's just that their life was lived differently. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. That there's so much to unpack in that. Before we do that, let's welcome Mrs.
Awesome. Hello.
Hello, Auntie, how are you? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is afternoon.
Afternoon now.
Yes, it's
my morning.
Yes.
When afternoon, and thank you for your T-shirt. That's exactly what we're talking about. Putting people first.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm sure it was a coincidence. Yeah.
Is that your topic?
Yeah, well, interesting enough, Claudette was just giving us a scenario of she'd come into a school and there was issues with the school engaging with parents. And she was in a position to do something about it. And she'd been warned to be careful with the parents because the school had bad experiences with them in the past. But exactly what your T-shirt says, what Claudette did, she put the children first.
Oh, fantastic.
And say, okay, okay, we can't just ignore the parents because that won't help the children. So then she began to listen and began to work between the school and the parents, and what she talked about, the initiative she came up with there came out of that experience. So it's kind of interesting that when people were stuck in their ego and stuck in their fear of the repeat of what happened negatively in the past, people were not willing to do what will serve the children. But I thought that not allowing that fear to be what dictated and determined how she reacted, she was able to put something in place and bring everybody on board and do something that served those children and the parents and the school benefits. So everybody was win-win-win from what I could work out.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah. So Claudette, you were saying what else was there in that particular piece that you're seeing there? And I better put that back in the chat because I think.
And I think one of the key things is not intimidated by the many gifts they bring. I think that was really important because every member of the team had gifts and different talents and different expertise in different areas. And you know, if I was when I put, because I wasn't a qualified teacher and they were, it would have been easy for me to say, you know what, I'm not a teacher. They asked and put more value on what their gives and undervalue my own. but I didn't do that. But what I was able to do, I was able to get them to bring their gifts
Mm-hmm.
into the space and share their gifts for everybody to, and so they could lead on their own gifts
Mm-hmm.
in a space that benefited everyone.
Yeah. I love that, because ultimately what you find is that when you're not afraid for other people to shine, and you're not afraid for other people to bring what they're good at, and this is why we reference this word ego further up in the piece, is that once you get over ego, a lot of things become possible. When you get caught behind ego and you're insecure and thinking, or a leader means you have to control everything and you have to have a finger in every pie and whatever, you can stretch yourself to a point where, I think we mentioned this last month, where you burn out, right?
Yeah.
So, but by leveraging everybody's gift, number one, you create variety in the mix. So there's more that can be offered because you have different perspectives and different gifts in the table. You have a wider place from which to see things and understand and appreciate things. And you also have longer longevity, because obviously if you're doing something on a weekly basis and something different is happening by different people bringing their gifts in, then all of a sudden you have people can be engaged for longer because there's different things happening that they're learning from, that they're getting to experience and be part of. So there is really a lot to be said about allowing people to shine. And the people who are shining, what did you find when you gave those people the opportunity to use their gifts? What was the experience for them?
I just think they became less fearful and more confident. And I felt they actually felt that they really had a role. They something to offer.
Right. So then that comes that engagement, right? Because people feel that they're part of the solution, they're part of the answer. They begin to own that. It's not just Claudette's thing, it's our thing, because they're part of it and they're making a difference. Anything else in there? And feel free to share it, and if you've got anything you see in there that triggers any thoughts for you.
I think the interesting bit for me is not afraid to let them see leaders are human too.
Yeah. Tell me about that. What comes up to you on that?
So even times when I made mistakes or didn't quite do what I was supposed to do or whatever, or was too tired to, or didn't get it, or wasn't on time for something, to let them know, so that they could see that I was a human being,
right,
with fears. Even when things went wrong, I didn't have all the answers, didn't have the answers for everything, didn't have the solution for every problem.
Yeah, and why do you think that might be of value for people to see that? What do you think that does for other people if they experience you in that way?
Because I think that then makes them feel it's okay for them not to always think that they are right, or they have to have everything right to participate. That it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fall short sometimes. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. It normalizes it. So the people begin to, because when people are fearful and people don't want to make a mistake, it's again going back to our previous framework of space. You cannot bring your best self because you're second guessing yourself. So you're not fully present, which is the point we were making from the other framework, is that being fully present is the only way to do your best work. If you're constantly worried about getting it wrong and what that might mean and whatever, then there's a good chance that you won't be present to do your best. By being human and showing you as a leader as human gives everybody else permission to be. Yes, hand raised.
Yes.
You don't have to raise your hand. There's only 3 of us. There's not that many. Go on.
Well, I'm used to that because
okay, go on. You're used to bigger groups. Yeah, go on.
Now, you are talking about how to stand out, to carry others along. You may know it with your gift. You don't have to push them out. You don't have to show ego that I know it all. My experience at work is what I want to talk about.
Okay.
I was working in a elderly home, people elderly home. So the leaders, I would say the bosses, I would say, they care about how much money they save in a year. Neglecting all the residents. They don't want to care about how they treat the residents. All they want to do as a manager is how much do you save for the year.
Right.
Instead of when in my own unit, it's the emergency unit. A respite unit. So instead of putting 4 people in a unit to do the work, they will end up putting only 2 people instead of 4. So how are we going to cope? In my own case, when there's any training, I always go. I always go. Any training they put up, they to the extent that the team will say, Eunice doesn't want to work, she wants to go for training all the time. So they gang up against me about that. She doesn't want to work, they don't want to work because she always wants to go for training. So when I finish all those things, it's only me now that will come forward when there's meeting. They'll be pushing me forward to speak on their behalf.
Right.
So I will make sure I say, listen, you can, when we have meeting with these leaders, you can't keep quiet. This is what I have in mind. Bring what you have in mind too, and you to bring your own suggestion so that by the time we meet them, everyone will be talking. It won't be only me. They always put me. I did about 3 meetings, and I could see that it's only me talking. How can it be only me? And I'm the leader in the unit. So that's how I bring them up. Everybody, let's sit down before the meeting. What do you suggest? What do you think? We write it down. You say yours, I will say mine. So that this is how I carry everybody along. So they will not look down upon those staff again. That's what are they doing there? So by the time we finish, when they were pressurizing us, they can't give us enough staff. They can't do this. I will do the medication. I will do the report. Then they will be cleaning the residents again, serving the food. It was too much. But when we talk at the meeting, they did not listen to us. You know what I did? I used my own method. I made sure one day I just decided to give the medication late and let them talk. Then they were saying, Eunice, you haven't done the medication. Look at the time. And I said, do you know what? This is when I went for the medication training. This is how we were told. This is how we were taught. So I don't want to put myself into trouble. It is your duty to give us more staff, not about saving money, but about seeing that these residents are well looked after. So then they have meeting. I didn't know, but I can feel it that they want to, they want to scold me about what I did. Before they did that, in the morning, I wrote them a letter and said, here I am, I cannot continue giving medication. Instead of them to jump onto me, I jump onto them. So they were all shocked. But later we sat down again and we settled everything. We carry ourselves along. Then I told my teams, any training that is coming on, we should be going one after the other. The 2 of us can't go in a unit. Just go and do the training. So if you don't understand, let us come together and help one another. When that one pass and get the certificate, another one will go. And that is how I carried on, that even when there's problem, they always, if there's an accident in the unit that they want to go to panel, I will lead, everybody will come and tell me, this is what happened, somebody fell. I said, just sit down, tell me how the person fell, then we'll go and cover up. And that is how I carry all my teams together with me. I wouldn't say it's me because I know I can talk. Or I am bold. I want everybody to be bold. I want everybody to be free. I want everybody to stand and make sure they talk. Nobody intimidating. Up till this moment, I retired when I was 65. Up till now, we are still getting in touch with one another. Even the one in Jamaica, the one everywhere, we still get in touch. So then they give the name a commissioner for people's affairs.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. But yeah, thanks for sharing that actually, because again, it's all well and good having these pieces, but these lived experiences that you're all sharing gives it flesh and gives it perspective. So if I were to look at what you just shared there, so there's an essence of, like you say, bringing people along here. But again, going to what your t-shirt is signaling there is about putting people first. Now, so a leader puts, so if you get to think it's all about you and protecting yourself, it's hard to at the same time have the right focus on putting the reason why you're there as a leader is to serve or to be of service to. And therefore it's never losing sight of what you're there to be of service to. So that's one. So there's an end client. So in Claudette's scenario, it's ultimately the students was what you were trying to make sure that was the kind of important people. In your case, it's those patients or those people who you're caring for. But as a leader, you're working with other people in order to achieve that. So again, part of this narrative is then talking about how do you interact with those people that you're working with too. You may or may not carry an official title of leader in that context, but how you conduct yourself is what begins to reflect as to whether actually you are leading. Because my theory is that we are all leaders, whether we like it or not, because there's always someone watching us. There's always someone using us as a yardstick. There's always someone within our realm of influence that we are influencing, even when we don't intend to influence them, because they are the ones choosing to look at us and learn from what we're doing or how we're carrying ourselves. So anything else in that piece that we've got there?
Can I say something in response to
Eunice, she's not Abiodun.
I put Eunice there.
I can't see Eunice there. It says Abiodun Agbola.
Okay, to Eunice, I was going to say, when you were speaking, there's two words came flashing to me, was responsibility and accountability. And I think that's one of the things that you were able to get your team to be responsible for. What they need to say, what they need to share in order to get things, rather than just relying on you. They had to take responsibility for the issues that they wanted to raise and be accountable to bring that forward to the bosses so that those issues could be heard. Because I think it's very hard to have a team if some of the team don't want to be responsible or don't want to be accountable or feel too afraid to be accountable for.
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to pull out, actually, that one of the elements of that leadership in those kind of contexts is to find out from those people. I think one of the things I always discourage people from doing when they see those scenarios is to assume that they know the reason why somebody doesn't want to talk. Or assume that they know the reason, or like in your case, Claudette, you assuming you know the reason why this person doesn't want to engage, or that exercise of actually sitting down and having that conversation. They say, okay, what is stopping you from sharing when the opportunity is there? What is it that, because some people just don't feel confident enough. Some people don't think their English is good enough. Some people are afraid. Some people have had bad experiences in the past where they've spoken up and something wrong has happened, blah, blah, blah. So there could be all sorts of reasons why people might be. But one of the ways we show leadership is to give people that space to really be honest about why. And when they are honest about the why, then you can see, okay, what is the best way to overcome that? So, Claudette, I love what you shared earlier about, okay, if we think the reasons why people are afraid of having the parents in is because they bad-mouthed them in the past, you said, well, we'll have boundaries, right? We'll have boundaries and we'll have rules that says you're not allowed to do that because it's not helpful. Or going back to what Eunice was saying about, okay, what we'll do is if you're all saying I'm the one who always goes to training or whatever, okay, let's take it in turns to go to training and let's support and help each other. And if you feel that you're kind of struggling to get to understand and whatever, we will support you in getting that understanding. So again, so leadership is about hearing, listening, understanding, and then finding ways to move things forward. Anything else coming up in that piece? So there is a piece I would like to pull out of there before we move further, and that's that penultimate line: not forgetting to enjoy the journey. Because I think leadership can be framed in such a way that it feels like you're carrying a heavy weight.
Yeah.
And in that framing of leadership, it can feel more like a burden than a privilege. And when that's the case, if that's the energy that you bring to leadership, it actually doesn't inspire other people to want to be involved in leadership, because they see what it's doing to you. They see how you are experiencing it. So the question is, how can you have leadership that feels like there is at least some element of enjoyment you can have in that? That's the question. How can you experience leadership, or how can you model leadership that has some sense of enjoyment?
I suppose by being honest and open and not taking yourself too seriously.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Honest, open. So again, speaking to us being human, but also not talk to me a bit more about not taking yourself too seriously. What does that look like?
I suppose, yeah, I suppose accepting sometimes that things might not go to plan. Accepting sometimes that things might not go as fast as you want it to go. And I suppose being open and just being flexible and adaptive to whatever comes up, rather than always trying to presume or predict what is going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen that way, you become sort of frustrated and worked up about something, because then if you behave like that, then you're that's how your team sees. That's how everybody else will behave like that too.
Yeah, I love that idea. So again, we're going back to this letting them see that you're human. And I love what you're pulling out, because these are some stuff we covered in the previous framework about this whole idea of the mind setting expectations, is kind of trying to predict the future from the past, but it can't. And also giving up that illusion of control, that you can control every aspect of everything, which you can't. So I love that what you're saying there about the flexibility of recognizing, okay, this thing did not go as I thought it would, but that's okay. What can we get from this? How can we use this? But also, here's something I know Eunice is an expert at, which is bringing laughter into everyday world and everyday life, and kind of really using humor almost as a tool to lighten the mood and to get people to just exercise their facial muscles and just relax and recognize that, yes, life is serious, but I mean, you should be able to have fun along the way. And here's the thing, Claudette. If I asked you to guess how old she is, what would be your guess? She won't be offended. Go on.
Oh,
Let's take a guess. Go on.
I could just take a guess. Is my guess supposed to be based on how she looks? Far much younger than she
So
really
what does she look? Is the look we're after?
What does she look?
She looks how old? It's not an exam.
Maybe late 50s.
Like that. I bring this up not because I'm trying to just embarrass her or anything like that, but actually the work that humor has done in her life is what you just testified to. Now, Auntie, would you care to share how old you actually are?
You know.
No, go on.
Let it come from the horse's mouth instead of you.
You are the horse.
I'm 83 years old.
83 years old. You would never in a lifetime believe that.
No. You wouldn't.
Not in a lifetime. From 50 to 80, 30-year difference in perception. And that just from having that kind of not taking yourself too seriously. I love that word you used there. She's a perfect example of that. You would not have a phone call with her and not come off laughing. It's just not possible. Not possible. But that energy really, and it's scientifically it's been proven that your face muscles, everything about, everything about your countenance, the hormones that are at play in your body, all those things are enhanced by a life that has more fun in it, has more laughter, has more cheer, has more joy in it. Would you care to say any more about that, Auntie?
What I want to say, sorry, about when working under pressure, there's nowhere you work that there wouldn't be pressure. But it depends on your mindset about all those pressures. So what I usually do is I look forward to my achievement of my goals, of my plan. No matter what comes my way, I know the end result is going to be good. It's going to be satisfactory. So that is what I always look for. When you look your surrounding, it's a discouragement. I have one case. Let me give you an example. I had one case in my unit. The clients is from Australia. So the children, they were in Australia, but I don't know this is why they come here. So they were in my home. So this woman came to visit with a little baby to come and visit the mother, but I know others, not that I look down on my staff, but I just want to, because they come from a far place. They must see the best that we are doing. So I just put myself forward for that duty. I took it up. Oh, hello, welcome them, tea and this and that. I make them, how many children have you got? How are you expecting more? I just give a joke. So then the client who, when you see your family, you'll be happy, you want to be, the light will just come on. So and I said, the woman that I'm looking after said, oh, this baby looks like a doll. I said, yeah, we are all looking like a doll when we were first born. Little me, I said, as you see me now, I was like a doll. I was even smaller than this when I was born. We joked. Do you know what happened? When they left, they reported that they came from Australia, that there is no staff to attend to them.
Interesting.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wanted to be angry, sort of. And I just said, I think it's cool. So they brought the report to me. I said, okay, when are we having the meeting? I told my other staff, this is what happened, because I gave them the joke when I always call them together. The people I went to represent us, this is what happened. This is what happened. I shared my joke with them. So when we had the meeting, I said, not only me you will have the meeting with, I would like all my teams to be there, so that at least they will say what they have heard if they are not there. So that is how we were saved in that problem. They wanted to take it higher, that to suspend somebody, or not even me, but that is how we win the case. We won the case. And I wrote it on my report. The joke that the woman said that the baby is like a doll. If we do not attend to her, how
is it possible?
Possible. There you are.
Yeah. And I love that story, because if you look further up in the piece, it says caring enough not to leave the team behind. So by you not leaving your team behind and keeping them up to date with what was happening in real time, they're able to corroborate your story and say, well, this person came back from this experience and shared with us that this is what took place. So if that happened, how can the person say that it didn't take place? Because we heard the story and so it's I like that. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a mystery why they did that, to be honest, but we won't go there. Anything else from this piece? Right. Okay. I am going to put one more piece in because I don't think we'll have time to do much more than that, to be fair. But I mean, that piece was a whole manifesto, so you could probably spend a whole couple of sessions just exploring that on its own anyway. So this jumps off one of the lines in that piece, which says leaders are human too. So it's just really drilling down a bit more into that notion. So I'm going to read it. Leaders are human too. If you are a leader, what would you do? If you spoke to one, what would they say to you? You bring me a dilemma. What would you have me do? If you were in my shoe, realizing that I'm human just like you. I have me and I have you, not to mention all the others too. I am your leader, that's true. You have a leader and I have one too, not to mention trying to do what is good for all of you. In all of that, do not forget, I am human too. So I'll read that again. Leaders are human too. Leaders are human too. If you were a leader, what would you do? If you spoke to me, if you spoke to one, what would they say to you? You bring me a dilemma. What would you have me do? If you were in my shoe, realizing that I'm human just like you. I have me and I have you, not to mention all the others too. I am your leader, that's true. You have a leader and I have one too, not to mention trying to do what is good for all of you. In all of that, do not forget, I am human too. What's coming up on that one?
Hello.
Yeah.
From beginning, from the first paragraph.
Yeah.
I will say, what I usually say when I was a leader of my union is that I said, we cannot be all together. We need to choose one to lead, but we are working together. I will just say what I usually say to them when I made my speech. I said, coming together is the beginning, but working together is where the success comes.
I like that. I like that. Coming together is the beginning. Working together is the thing, right? I like that. I like that.
So don't depend on saying, oh, she's a leader. She has to bring all the suggestions. She has to do everything. All hands be on the desk.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I love that. Yeah. And there is that sense that once people identify someone as a leader, they think, well, let them sort it out and they can just come along for the ride. But as we discussed in the first piece, is the idea that everybody has their gift and everybody can lead in the use of their own gift and bring that together. Thanks for sharing that. Anything else?
Let me go back.
What was coming up for me was that we all lead in different ways because we're different people. We all lead in different, but we mustn't forget that we are all humans. We all lead in different ways, but not to forget that we are all human beings.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the clarion calls in that. This piece actually came from back in the day when we had the pandemic. I was at work and obviously, nobody had seen a lockdown like, happened in the pandemic. It was a new experience for everybody. And leaders were under a lot of pressure and a lot of criticism as well, because people had all these expectations of them. And it was just a way of me putting something out there to say, hey, people, let's not lose track that these people, not only do they have to experience the same pandemic you're experiencing, they now have to show leadership to you, have to worry about you, worry about themselves, worry about their families, as well as show up as a leader every day, let's not forget these people are human too. And so when you think there's a problem, how can you help bring solutions rather than just dilemmas? That kind of what that was is. And in the end, I ended up kind of offering, free coaching to some of those leaders just to support them through that, because everybody was looking to them for answers, but who was looking after them? Anything else?
I suppose I like the bit when it goes, if you were in my shoe.
Yeah.
And I suppose you're supposed to empathizing with the different position, isn't it?
I love it. I literally just looked at that line just before you spoke. Literally. So that's
Yes.
really, really interesting that you then picked up on that. And that, in a way, if you go back to the first piece, if you go back to the story you shared, Claudette, that was kind of the invitation you were offering people. It's like, you're against these parents. What if you went into their shoe and saw that they were just scared and wanted the best for their children? How would it color how you treat them, right? And what you did was you create an environment where, despite their concerns and past experiences, they could begin to be safely see that, oh, well, I can see the humanness of this person. Parent is a human being just like me. Yeah. Empathy is so important. Ines, were you going to say something about it?
Yeah, the empathy is very important.
Yeah. Did you have more to say about that, Claudette? The importance of empathy, or where have you seen empathy at play, and the benefit that's?
Well, in the same, as you said, in the same scenarios, yeah. Sometimes you just have to put aside for a moment, push the hurt to the side,
right,
and just allow yourself to be in that person's shoes.
Yeah.
To be in that person's shoes, sit in that person's shoes for a little while.
Right.
Sit in that person's shoes. Okay, yes, I don't like that parent is late. Every day she brings that son to school late. She don't care about whether whether he feels embarrassed going in class. He don't care that he's falling behind. But put yourself in that parent's shoes, that she has to take 2 trains and a bus to get to school because the school is so far. She doesn't drive. She's got very little money. So think of yourself, what time you'd have to get up in the morning. Get yourself ready, get your child ready, then go and rely on public transport to get into the school. Put yourself in her shoes when she's been battling with local authority to move her closer to where her child, school.
Yeah.
So once you put yourself in that shoe, you can begin to realize, oh my God, what does it actually feel like to have to get up at that time of the morning, to have to go through that routine,
right,
every day, and then you get to the school and then you get bashed because you're late.
Yeah. No, that's powerful what you shared there, because there's a couple of things that came to mind. There is the idea that, number one, you have to put aside your ego to enter into someone else's shoe, because when you're trying to protect your ego and say, oh, but this is the inconvenience, this has to me, blah, 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 and that's all your focus is, you're not actually looking at that. That's number one. Number two, actually, all the gaps that you filled in there about what if you had to experience what this person had to experience, you can't find that out until you take the time to sit and listen, to say, okay, what challenges are you facing that means that you end up struggling to make time? Then when you hear that story and you come to understand the person's circumstance, then you're entering into that shoe to say, wow, if that was me, how would I feel? And how am I now adding to that problem by being the one who now begins to berate that person at the gate, right? So it's that whole, so you've more or less demonstrated the practicality of what it means to step into someone's shoes, which means put aside your judgment, put aside your concern or the impact on you, and try and listen to the other person and understand what is their challenges and their experiences. Were you going to say something?
Yes, sir. What I want to say is that, well, I'm trying to do good to all of you.
Right.
I'm trying to do good to all of you.
Mm.
From the beginning, as a boss, as a leader, since you can have the love to bring everybody together, to put them first, to think about their own, situation, to feel for them. You don't even need to say, I'm trying to do good. They know that this my boss, he loves everybody, he wants good for us.
Right.
Because you bring them along from the beginning. They know you're feeling your pain, you are feeling their pain. So they will know that we are together as a body.
Yeah. And in actual fact, there's nothing more powerful than that as a leader, to be honest. If you can set that environment as a leader, I think there was something in the scripture really that talks about David's men would run through a troop and leap over a wall.
Yes.
And it was that kind of environment that was created, where it's like, this person is not just caring about themselves or their ego or their reputation. They're not using us just to elevate themselves. They care genuinely for us. And therefore, those people will stand with you in any challenging situation.
Exactly.
Because they know for a fact that you are. Wow. That's beautiful. I mean, we've even gone slightly over time there, but that's been such a beautiful, wonderful conversation, and the part that you both have played, especially in the stories that you've brought, which, I mean, there's no substitute for. It's all well and good talking theory, but when you can bring practical things that have happened in your lives that demonstrate or give opportunity to explore these things, that's priceless. So thank you very much. And yes, we will continue on this leadership journey. And as I always say, the great leadership journey starts from within. So